So, there's the Core i7 4770K and 4790K. There's also the 6700K, 7700K. But wait, if there's a 4th gen 4790K and a 6th gen 6700K, what happened to Intel's 5th gen i7 5700K? Well, for that story, I guess you could choose to believe Steve from Gamers Nexus.
Keep in mind that the 5775C is an imaginary CPU that no one could buy, so the 6600K is basically the actual generational step.
Though, if what he says is true, how would you explain this? Now, obviously, I know he was being a bit facetious with that, and that, yes, of course it existed, but yes, it was almost impossible to find when it was released. And that had partially due to the fact that it was almost a quiet release by Intel, in the enthusiast and the, gaming community at least. And it was completely overshadowed by Skylake, which came out not too long after. But why didn't it make a huge splash in the gaming and enthusiast community? Well, that's because it was never meant for the gaming community. Yes, it came out for the Z97 chipset. After a BIOS update, you could slot it right in, past your 4770 or 4790K. And, well, it wasn't even an upgrade. The clock speeds of the 5775C are actually lower than the 4790K. But IPC is up to about 10% higher than the 4790K, though in many gaming benchmarks and other kinds of benchmarks, it does fall short still a little bit, even with IPC improvement, but overclocking is definitely a possibility. Now, why do I say this was not meant for the gaming community? Well, it's because of the features that this has. They're not gaming features. You don't game with integrated graphics on a CPU, and if you do, I'm sorry. High-end Intel CPUs, especially i7s and other high-end gaming CPUs, are definitely meant to be used with dedicated graphics cards. So it means you have a GPU to do your rendering in your game as well as a CPU, but you don't just use the integrated graphics on your CPU. So why on the 5775C does it have upgraded graphics? The 5775C, now, I don't know where the 5775 came from, but as far as I know, the C means that it has Intel's Iris Pro graphics. So that is better than the normal, Intel UHD graphics. I don't remember what it was at the time. It's like the 4000 series. Now we're up to like 630 or 650, etc., etc. But it has their Iris Pro graphics. And that's kind of what tipped me off into thinking, well, this CPU is, although yes, it released on the same platform as something like 4790K or something like that, was not meant for the consumer space in that way. This CPU, with that upgraded graphics and a level 4 cache, which a lot of CPUs don't have, this has 128 megabytes of EDRAM or level 4 cache, whichever one you prefer to call it, for those integrated graphics. Which is weird, because if it was a gaming CPU, integrated graphics, yes, they can be there, which is fine. Intel CPUs, most of them have integrated graphics. But why even bother upgrading them or giving them EDRAM? That just takes up more space on the chip. But this CPU doesn't tell the whole story. Now, I will be uploading videos. I do want to test the gaming performance, and I'm also going to be making a dedicated streaming box with this CPU because of those great graphics. I actually don't even need a graphics card to use X264 and everything, so I'm going to be making a couple videos on this CPU. It took me a while to get, but so I want to talk here for a minute. The 5775C does not tell the whole story of Intel's 5th gen. They also released a couple of other CPUs along with the 5775C, including a CPU known as the 5775R. Now, the 5775R was a BGA-only CPU, meaning it had to be soldered. That is a ball grid array CPU. It means it has to be soldered to the board. And you can only find 5775Rs in small workstation PCs and the likes of that. Which leads me to believe that with those Iris Pro graphics, this CPU is not really meant to have a dedicated graphics card with it. Well, why they even bothered to release a 5775C is beyond me. What I believe they done is just to get continuity, even though most people don't even know it exists, just to have a continuity with what they call their own generations, because you can't just skip 5th gen. Now, quotations on generations, because it's more or less Intel's number of generations, not actual CPU generations. I don't really know how to explain it, but there are plenty of better videos on this. But basically, actually speaking, they're not generations, they're just Intel's naming scheme. But they can't call something 6th gen, the 6700K and all that, without having a 5th gen. So I believe they had planned on making the Iris Pro CPUs, the 5775R and all that, for the professional environment and workstation pieces like that. But they also released the 5775C to continue the line in their generational improvements and to kind of, flex their IPC improvements over the 4790K, which is again weird, but that's kind of why it's lower clocked. It wasn't really meant for that space. It just was released to continue their generational improvements. And that's about it. So that's at least my take on the 5775C and that whole 5th gen fiasco thing. Let me know what you think in the comments, but this video was just to kind of introduce and also to make the joke, because I was watching that Gabe's Next video, and I was like, I have a 5775C that I ordered from China. Might as well make a little joke about it, but I will be doing videos. I want to do gaming performance, and again, this is going to be my new dedicated streaming CPU, and I'm super excited for that. I've got an ITX board. I'm going to make a small chat. It'll be great. That's the point. Hope you guys kind of enjoyed this little video. That's really it. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.